Hi, my name's Andrew Ibrahim, and I'll be talking to you a little bit today about presenting for impact, how to improve your conference poster. We have conference season coming up, a lot of us presenting posters, and these will be some design strategies to make your poster more engaging and more effective. Oftentimes when you go to these meetings, they'll often give you a template that looks a lot like this that'll suggest to you multiple sections to put in your poster. And this is typically what happens. I went back and looked at one of the first papers I presented at a conference and tried to make it into a poster. And this is what happens. You end up copy and pasting whole sections of your manuscript into the poster, and it makes it pretty uninviting to look at. And if people have a lot of options of where to stop, this tends to move it down the list. So how could you stand out when you're at a poster session when there's multiple posters? Someone's trying to find your content. Someone's really interested in your work, and you want to make it as easy as possible for them to be able to find you and the work that you're doing. So these are some design strategies to rethink your poster to make it more accessible. So start again with this template, and the first thing I want you to do is just simplify the format. Look at each of those sections and think, how many of those do I actually need? Do I need all 10 of those sections? So in this case, I shortened it down to just 6 sections that got across the main sections of what I wanted to talk about, and I shortened my title a fair bit. Did readmissions decline for surgery? Gosh, that's so straightforward. If you were walking by in that aisle and you cared about surgery and readmission rates, you would know to stop at this poster because that's what it was about. Next thing I want you to do is, instead of just taking that whole paragraph of text and dumping it in there, or even taking it and putting it into bullets, try to think of it more like a slide and see if there's a visual way that you can communicate that information that you can still talk about. So here, for example, in that first column, I've taken a slide approach to that first column and said, why study readmissions? Because they're common, costly, and in many cases may be preventable. What's the policy being evaluated? The Hospital Readmission Reductions Program, and you can see some details about it there and the initial conditions it was targeting. And then what did I study in this particular study? What cohort did I study? I used Medicare claims data for the 6 procedures shown there. So it doesn't have all the details that you'd put in your manuscript, but remember, you're going to be there and you can talk about it with the person who's listening to you. But for the poster itself, make it much more clear and accessible. Next thing you want to do in your main findings and questions is to ideally connect them together in a one-to-one. Sometimes we spend so much time in that first column saying, what's the question, what's the objective of the study? And then you repeat it again right before you answer it. It gets a little too redundant for something that's supposed to be a pretty concise presentation. So here's a different way to think about it. Take that key questions and findings part and combine them and just lay out your questions. Our first question was, did readmissions go down? Second question was, did length of stay change? Third question was there a correlation with observation use? And then add the visuals. So these are the visuals from the manuscript that I typically would present in a slide and put them here. All of a sudden now, if you're stopping by, this is a much more visually attractive poster to stop at. And pretty quickly, someone can understand what are your main questions and what were your main findings. In this last section, I want to encourage you to invite a conversation. A poster is never a substitute for the whole article, and you'll never be able in a poster to communicate all the things that you wanted to about your study. But you do want people to lean in and say, tell me more about that. I want to learn more about that topic, or how can I follow up with you? First strategy is when you do your conclusion or implications, I state a couple things that are pretty summative of the study so far. Hospitals responded to financial incentive to reduce readmissions. But then I also add something that's a little more open-ended. It's unclear if surgery has a readmission floor. Now, somebody may lean in and say, Andrew, I don't know what you mean about that. And that's great, because that invites a conversation and allows me to talk more about the work and engage someone in the poster. And then finally, you want to make it easy for them to follow up. In the past, we used to use these paper handouts that people would take with them, or we'd give out like a business card. I think in the modern era, it's much more effective to just have a QR code that either goes to your website, that goes to a Dropbox link that has your full document or something to follow up on, or just your contact information so people know how to reach you. So I hope that's helpful, and some design strategies that'll help you take what is otherwise a pretty dense poster and make it into something visually more accessible that hopefully engages more people into your work. Thank you so much.